We heard the lead prosecutor, Bernie Della Rionda, accuse George Zimmerman of profiling Trayvon Martin, but in his closing argument today, he didn't actually refer to racial profiling. Listen to this.
He profiled him as a criminal. He assumed certain things, that Trayvon Martin was up to no good. And that is what led to his death. You know, this wasn't at 2 o'clock in the morning or partying somewhere. Not that that would in any way minimize it, but he was just doing a normal everyday thing. He went to the store, got something, got some Skittles and some tea or drink, and was just walking back. Now it was raining. He was wearing a hoodie. Last I heard, that's not against the law. But in this man's eyes, he was up to no good. He presumed something that was not true.
That assumption, that presumption, Jeffrey, that's going to be, I think that's going to resonate with the 6 members of the jury.
Well, just to go back, this is why this case drew national attention in the first place. Because all of us asked the question, what kind of country do we live in where a 17-year-old African-American can't go to buy Skittles and a drink, walk home to watch the NBA All-Star game without getting killed? I mean, that's what this case has always been about. And now, of course, it's become a lot more complicated with the claim of self-defense, but I did think, particularly the opening part of the summation, where he asked that question, what did Trayvon Martin do wrong here? That's the most effective, and that's the most stirring, upsetting part of this case.
Yeah, I think it's going to resonate with those women. Jose, what do you think?
I agree, and I think he job in that part of the presentation. He, you know, Bernie needs to grab their emotions and hold it, and I think certainly at that point that I don't know anyone who wouldn't be grabbed by that.
And that's why, Sonny, I believe, and you tell me if you agree, that this judge's decision to allow manslaughter to be also considered a lesser charge than second-degree murder gives those members of the jury, if they want to convict, they don't want to necessarily convict him of murder and life in prison, but they do want to punish him in some way, and they think manslaughter might be the way to go. They don't know what the sentencing guidelines are for manslaughter. The judge is not going to tell them, but it will give them what potentially they could see as a compromise.
I think so. I mean, I think Jeff said it so well. That is what really is at the core of this case. Why can't a 17-year-old African-American boy go to the 7-Eleven, buy a watermelon drink and Skittles, and get back home safely without being profiled, without being lumped and you know, targeted as a criminal? I think that all the mothers on the jury are going to think, shouldn't the person that made these wrong assumptions be found responsible? Because George Zimmerman is the one that set this ball in motion. And I just can't imagine that when they get back into the jury room, Wolf, and they put their common sense hat on and their mother hat on, they're not going to go there. Maybe they won't find this ill will, spite, hatred, although I think there is evidence of that, quite frankly. But I can't imagine that they won't find him culpable of something.
As far as that manslaughter, lesser charge as opposed to second-degree murder, Jeffrey, how significant is that decision by the judge to allow the jurors to consider the lesser charge?
It's enormous because the jury can think to itself, oh, well, we're not going all the way, but we're compromising. We're just finding him guilty of manslaughter. Now, as we've been discussing over the last few days, under Florida law, he could get an enormously long sentence, decades in prison for manslaughter. So if the jury convicts of manslaughter, that will be a win for the prosecution. There's no doubt about it.
But the jury won't know about the sentencing guidelines. The judge is not allowed to tell the jury that because there was a gun involved, a manslaughter conviction could lead, as you say, potentially to decades in prison. They're not going to know that. They might think it'll be 3, 5, 8 years, something like that. Maybe that's what he deserves. for profiling this 17-year-old to begin with. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just raising that as a potential possibility out there. All right, stand by. We're going to continue our conversation. Now, the fireworks that the jury didn't see, you will see some of those fireworks. The judge and one of Zimmerman's attorneys, they got into a real battle today. Will it affect the final outcome? Stand by.
That's an integral part of our theory of defense, and the court commits error by